Hi, and welcome back to the Quilter's Candy Shop, where you will find sweet treats for the discerning quilter. Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm so glad you're here with us today because today we are moving on to week number 4 of our Old Garden Baskets Quilt Sew-Along. Now, it's not too late for you to join our sew-along. There's no cost or fee, other than you do have to buy the pattern that we are using, and we are using Wendy Shepherd's Basket Full of Blessings pattern. In the pattern, you will get the information for how much fabric you need and the basic cutting instructions. You can find the pattern on our website at www.thequilterscandyshop.com. That's SHOPPE shop.com. And not only will you be able to find the pattern there, but you'll be able to find all of our kits that we have available. And we have 8 different color stories for you to choose from. The first one we have is the one we've got on display behind, and it is actually the reverse of the pattern. The baskets are light and the background is dark, and it is really pretty. Here we have our blueberry sherbet colorway. The main color of the prints is navy and blue, and it's also got a bunch of cute sherbet colors to go in, topped with a little bit of caramel. It's going to be really lovely. And one of our most popular is our forest truffle colorway. The main color is pine green, and it is infused with chocolate and caramel bits that are going to make this quilt delicious. If you want to go a little more bright and summery, we have our summer taffy collection. And this has a whole bunch of soft colors that look just like taffy, like lime, lemon, melon. One of my favorite colorways is our fall spicy icy. And this has great pumpkin colors, fall leaves, and acorns, and also this really beautiful icy teal color, and it all comes together for a great fall country quilt. This little pack is called Winter Fresh Mint, and it has everything from peppermint, spearmint, wintergreen, and teal, and it is going to be perfect for that French country setting. Now, whether you buy one of our kits or you shop from your own stash, all you have to do is start from the beginning and join us right here on YouTube for the Old Garden Baskets Quilt Sew-Along. Well, let's get started. Last week we got the hardest part done, and that is the quarter square triangles. They're small and they're simple, they just take a lot of time. But now we're going to put those cute little units together in a basic 9 patch to create our Ohio star, which gets put right in the center of our basket. While this is not difficult, it does take some precision sewing. So let's get back to the sewing room and start sewing something sweet. Okay, here I have my very cute quarter square triangles, all trimmed and pressed and looking adorable. I also went ahead and separated out my coordinating squares that go with this, and I just have them stacked underneath, so I have the whole stack ready to go when I work on that particular Ohio star. I'm going to use this one because it's darker and you'll be able to see it really well. All of these pretty much get put together the same way. All right, you need 4 of your quarter square triangles, and remember, we're making 2 Ohio stars, so you're going to be laying out 2 at a time. Here's the trick for the Ohio star. You put your quarter triangles, the top and the bottom have the triangles going north and south, and the side pieces have the triangles going east and west. So it's very easy to lay these out. You can just twist them to fit where they go, like that. There you have it. And now, one more quick tip, and that is to check that you have this square on point in the center. If you've got one like this and you're going around and boom, you run into something, you know you've got something wrong. So turn that around. You should be able to see this cute little square on point right in the center. That's how you know you've got your pieces in the right place. The next thing is you need 4 of your coordinating basket fabrics, and they go in the 4 corners like this. Super simple. And of course you need a center to your star, and then boom, look how it just comes alive and pops right off when you've got all the pieces in place. Now all this is a 9 patch, so unless you've never done a 9 patch before, this is going to be super easy. The most important thing when it comes to the Ohio Star, especially in the scale that we're doing this, because this is quite a small quarter square triangle, so your seam allowances need to be very precise so that everything comes out nice on your points. I'm going to set this star over here aside so we can work on this one. And you can do both stars at the same time, or you can make one star and then the other. But let's just start with one star and then the other to start. You're going to take your right side and flip it over like this. And we're going to sew this seam. So you're going to pick up this one, get everything nice and lined up like that, and then put it in your machine. And I highly recommend having your needle in the down position so you can run your pieces right up to your needle. Put the foot down. This way you can really see. If you have a 1/4 inch foot, you want to make sure that's not sticking out past your 1/4 inch foot. If you have a regular foot like I do, there's a 1/4 inch mark line right here. You want to be on the inside of that. And if you're using diagonal seam tape, even though we're not doing diagonals, this is very handy because no matter the size of the piece you've got on here, you can make sure you're inside this line for your 1/4 inch. And that way you'll know you have a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm going to just quick sew this one together. All right, now I'm not going to press these open. I'm just going to finger press this one to the outside. For the entire Ohio Star, the seam allowance is going to go away from the triangles. So this one is my center. Even though it's going the other direction, it is still going away from my triangles. We're going to flip this whole row onto there, just like this, and like this, and like this. And we're going to sew this seam scant 1/4 inch. Make sure you're getting those corners really lined up well. And put it right up against that needle, keeping a really good scant 1/4 inch right here. And I use a little pressure back here on my thread saver to get this going so it doesn't go right down in that hole, because that can be very frustrating. Okay, here's the second one. I put it right up against the needle. The needle is in the down position. I lift my presser foot, put my piece right up against the last one, make sure my 1/4 inch is square, little pressure on the back side, and it sews right through perfect every time. And just like before, I take off my thread saver, run that through, take my chain off, and then just quickly pop it apart with my B cutter. I am going to take the time to give these a quick press just like this because it will help us get really good points when we nest our seams if these are pressed open. So let's go to the ironing board. Okay, so here we have one of the Ohio Star parts. Here we have the other Ohio Star parts. And basically we're going to give this a press. We don't want to tug or do too much to these Ohio Stars because they can alter, and we want to be super nice to these little cuties. They've been through a lot already, so let's be nice to the little quarter square triangles. And so now you can see on the back, there's our little 4-patch that we learned last week for our seam allowance. And there we have that open. And now, because these are pressed open, we can really nest these two seams well together. But when it comes to something like this, the precision is important. So we're going to use a few pins. So I like to take and open this up and find this point and find this point and get those nested together. And I'm going to put a pin right in here to hold this all together. And then I'm going to come down here, do the same thing. Make sure it's nested nicely, nice and tight before you pull that back. So make sure that's where you want it. Then when you like that, you can see there's the point of the star and there's the point of the basket. I want those to line up. You can just kind of keep pulling it back until you know you got it in the right place, and then pin it. All right, I'm going to pin this one together also. Pull back this edge. Now this one, my point's a little bigger than here, so I'm going to have to shift this down just a little. It's more important that your points match up. Then see right here, this bottom one is sticking out a little bit more, but this, now my points are perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it, even though that's off just a little bit. It's not going to make a difference in the long run, but the points will be noticeable. So here I'm going to do the same thing. The seam is really well nested. Then I'm going to pull this back like this, and voila, it's going to be perfect. See how that point just nestles right in there? And I'm going to put my pin on this side. Let's sew these two, and I'll bring it right back. All right, and here they are all sewn. We're going to set this. And then open it up, and here we are going to open it up the same way as before, because now we have an additional bulk in here. So we are going to pop these open like this. Perfect. And spin those seam allowances. Now this one spins this way, but since this is all one piece right here, it's going to spin the opposite on the other side, just like this. Excellent. Give it a quick press on the back side. The quick press is just to hold these in place. I'm going to go ahead and do this one too. And now we flip it over, and this is how we're going to really see if we've got everything where we want it. All right, now I think I went just a little too scant here. That needs to come in. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to take this seam allowance out just to about here, and I'm going to make a little deeper seam allowance right there. So let's set this aside. And you know, it happens because we've got a lot of things we're looking at. We've got to get those points matched. It's got to be a scant seam allowance, and you've got lots of things coming together. Oh, here we did much better. So this is great. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to leave this one as is, and I am going to fix this one and then we'll sew this part on, which just flips on here. Okay, so I've taken this apart to here, and I'm going to realign and make sure this is nested up good. It is. Pull this back and make sure it wasn't that it wasn't aligned. It is lined up really good. It's just I didn't take a deep enough seam allowance. But since I've taken everything apart, I need to just double check that I'm putting it back together the right way. And look at that. I think that's good. So we're going to put that in there. And now this time what I'm going to do is make my pin, and I should have pointed this out before, and then I probably wouldn't have had the mistake. But you see here where this seam allowance comes down. Let me hold that down. And this seam allowance comes across. That's your point right there. Now you don't want to sew right through this X. You want to sew just above it. A, because we're making a scant, and B, we need room for that point to actually show. So you don't want to get into your point. And I was just being a little too conservative, so this time I'm gonna go put my pin. I like to put my point right where the aim where I want to sew, and then now I know when I'm coming along here, my scant, I'm going to aim my needle to come right up to where this pin is. I'll pull it out, of course, before I sew, but you can see my point is still on the outside because we're doing a scant 1/4 inch. Let me sew it and I will show you what it looks like. All right, this is looking better already. Let's give it a press. Set that seam, let everything kind of relax, get back into shape because we've kind of been manhandling it a little bit. All right, and now we will open it up. Much better. Look at that. Okay, and now we will pop these open. And if you do it right, I should have showed you on the other one too, but if you do it right, you get a little pinwheel in your thing. And so instead of a 4-patch, you've got a pinwheel. And this really helps to spread out the bulk of that seam. There we go, like this. All right, press that one. Just give it a quick touch here and set the clapper on it and it'll be good to go. While that's cooling, I'm going to go ahead and show you on this one and we'll get moving along here. So look, we're almost done with this block. We're just going to flip this over, nest up these seams just like before. My seams are nested. And pull this back, and I think I've got a nice equal points there. So I'm going to layer that back, take my pin, and now you can see where this seam comes down and this comes across. There's my point, and I'm going to be sewing on this side. So I'm going to take it back just a little bit and pin that underneath seam allowance. Okay, and over here, same thing. So I'm going to pull this baby back, and no, see, this one is much bigger than the bottom one, so I need to make an adjustment, line that up till I get those looking the same. That looks good, so I'm going to layer this back, make sure it's nested, these points are in the same place. Follow my seam allowance. This one comes down here, this one comes along here, so here's my point. I'm going to put the pin on this side, but where this point is, I'm actually coming up above and over on the seam allowance side. All right, and in. So hopefully you can see that, and I'll do my best to zoom in as close as I can so you can see that. Let's sew it. Here we go. So set this seam. Okay. Okay, I'm going to pop these seams open here. Sometimes you have some stubborn threads, especially if you have like a little tighter stitch length, and you just take a needle and just reach in there and pop those threads, and it's okay. Remember, you've got this sewing line that's going across there, so this is not going to come undone because of these couple of little stitches. You've got that covered, but that's just going to help it lie down a little more flat. So let's see how this one does. Open it up like this. see I got just a couple of little threads because of that diagonal, so I'm just gonna pull that out there. There we go. You just have to make it bend to your will. You're the master, you're the designer, so everything's going to comply. So we're gonna set the seam, get that into place, and then flip it over. And look at that. Now this point doesn't come exactly here, but that doesn't bother me. If that bothers you, you can take this out and do it again. But I rather am more concerned about the delicateness of the quarter square triangles. So I'm happy with it, and I'm going to leave this one. And let's see what we got going on this one. Pop this one open. Oh, see, that popped open just super easy. There we go. Pop that thread out. All right. And I'm going to give this a quick press. Put all those seam allowances in the right place. You have to pay kind of close attention here so you don't disrupt all the work you've done back over here with your iron. All right, there we go. And then when you flip it over, everything will come out great. Okay, look at that. That looks terrific. Look at that beauty. Clean off all the extra threads. There we go. And look, yay. Okay, so that is one fabric, 2 baskets, stars complete, and you can go and do all your other stars. I do have one quick note about your directional prints, so let's talk about that. I do want to talk to you quickly about directional fabrics when putting together your Ohio stars. So let's get out the quarter square triangles and your coordinating pieces. I'm going to show you on this super cute little bundle of mushrooms. And so I want all my mushrooms to be standing upright. And so every time you go to put down a piece, you're going to have to look and see what position your mushroom's in. Once you get those standing up, then you can determine, is this piece east-west side piece, or is the piece a north-south top or bottom piece. So got north, south, top and bottom, and side piece. And so now you can just lay these all out, making sure your mushrooms are standing up straight, just like that. Okay, I've got something. All right, so here I thought I had it right, but remember the trick. As soon as I figured out I had something wrong, I looked for my center square and I don't have one. So I've got these two in the wrong place. And just like that, it is fixed. Now for the rest of your squares, same thing. I would just put them all upright and then you can just lay them all out nice and quick like this. And of course we need a couple of centers for our star. All right. Again, before you would sew, I would just take a moment, make sure you've got your square on point in the center, which I do, and then just look at each piece and make sure the mushrooms are standing up, or whatever it is. If you've got flowers, if you've got little animals, or whatever you've got in your fabric that makes it directional, just make sure they're all standing up. And now I can do the same process here that I did with this one. And you are set to go. And here we are, 2 more of the blocks complete. Now, just 2 more steps before we are done with our Ohio Star block. The first one is to give this a really good pressing. And so take a nice hot iron and just give this a good press and get it as flat as possible. And I recommend throwing on a little bit of starch. And I just give this an overall spray, just a quick one. Don't soak it. because you don't want things to stretch out of place. But if you've got, like, this block is a little bit out of whack, so this is a chance where you can kind of square things up a little bit and make sure everything is nice and neat and flat and your seam allowances are all looking good. So there you go. I'm going to do the other one here really quick. There we go. And this makes it so much easier to handle when they've had a little bit of starch, and this will be really great for the next step. All right, last but not least, squaring up the block. There really shouldn't be anything left to trim because the way the pattern is written, this should come out to the right size automatically. However, life doesn't always go as planned, and so it's probably a good idea to take a look and see what you've got. 2 things about squaring up. I like to line up the lines with this seam allowance. It's not going to be perfectly straight because no one's perfect, and that's fine. But I like to get this center and these seam allowances kind of all squared up, and then look and see what is left. I'm going to move this like this. Here we go. I'm going to change this around just for you so you can see this better. There we go. I don't know if you can see this. This is a very scant little amount, especially over here. There's hardly anything. I'm still going to run my rotary cutter around and try and get it all cleaned up just so I have nice edges to work with. However, if you are too close to your points, it's not worth trimming it up because you have to make sure that you've got enough seam allowance. Now, there's 2 things you can do to fix it if you're too close. You can employ an 1/8" seam allowance instead of a full 1/4 inch, and that will work. So you have a nice square block and everything looks pretty. But if you get too close to your points, I think it would be better if your block was just a skosh too big. Your quilter is going to be able to take that up when she's quilting. So trimming up the block is great to make sure that you've got everything nice and square to work with in the next step. But it's not worth it if you're going to lose your points on the next step. So be very mindful about squaring up whether or not it's worth it. So I still have, this one is going to have a full 1/4 inch. This one's going to have a full 1/4 inch. This one's going to have an 1/8 inch, but I think I'm going to be happy about that. And this one will have a full 1/4, and I'm going to be able to trim. So I think I've got this all lined up. I'm going to trim on one side and across the top. And you can see I haven't trimmed off very much. But you'll see it's going to look better and it'll be exactly the right size for the pattern. So now I'm just lining up this edge. I don't worry about this so much because I know I got that perfect the first time. So now I'm just lining up the measurement that's in the pattern and trimming off this and across the top. So you can see here, look how little I trimmed off, but look how great this edge is now for me to work with. So this is my 1/8 inch corner. All right, so there's that one. I'm going to do this other one also, just so you can see again. This one's, I know I've got a piece that's a little short, so I might not end up trimming this one. We'll see. So lining up everything in these seams and this center. And then I'm going to look at what is left around the outside. So this one's okay. And this one's going to be a little scant. I might move this down just a skosh. Yeah. Okay. If you're new and you don't have a lot of experience squaring up blocks, I might just suggest you just leave them, and then all the crooked parts are going to be inside the seam of the next step. So you don't have to do this step. I just feel like it makes my blocks so much easier to work with. One, because it's a little bit stiffer, and two, the edges are nice and clean. And now I'll be able to put my next set of pieces will look great. Okay, well, there you go. All of my blocks done and ready to be put together into the baskets. Thanks for joining the Quilter's Candy Shop. We'll see you next week.